Howdy, soldiers. Oh baby, my internet is down, my headache is up, and I am fully in the middle of the crisis that I've put off for the last 4 months. Which is also why in a couple of minutes this video is gonna get interrupted so that I can take the cookies that I'm baking out of my oven. Because who doesn't love a little edible serotonin? So I figure I'm gonna do something that's gonna make me feel happy and productive. This video idea has been on the back burner of my mind. It's been percolating for a couple of weeks now. 2 or more authors writing a book together is not anything new. In fact, there's been actually quite a large uptick of collaboration books or anthologies. Book collaborations are a little different than like a makeup company collaborating with an influencer, and they're definitely different than like book bloggers collabing with each other. I feel like it would just be like 2 people yelling the exact same thing for 15 minutes. Like, oh my god, I love this book, it was so great, didn't you like it? Yeah, I loved it, it was so wonderful. My favorite scene is when they go into the mech bot and they do the thing. Oh my god, it was my favorite scene too! Because that's how I sound when me and my book blogger friends get together. But authors coming together to write, sometimes I think you can tell who's writing what, especially if it's a dual point of view. But I think the best is when their styles complement each other, so the way that they write just seamlessly moves in. So I've come up with a list of some of my favorite authors who I would love to collaborate on literally whatever they wanted to, and I would buy it. First up would be the magical, whimsical, likely dark god-infused collab that would be between Neil Gaiman and Erin Morgenstern. Cookies! Okay, cookies are cooling. We're gonna still talk about these people. From a, editor, writer perspective, Erin's work is a little bit more high concept, especially with Starless Sea, and Night Circus is just very whimsical, like magical, whereas Neil Gaiman's works, even though he does write about like gods and like fairies and like what have you, I feel like his works always have that realism to them. They talk about like the gritty sidewalk street. So the 2 of them together would be really good because Neil could ground the book, whereas Erin could like make it more whimsical and fantastical without either of them kind of going too far in either direction. And if I'm known for anything, it's that I love fairy lore and mythological retellings, and if there is a book that boasts a magic circus, I'm gonna buy it. I'm trying to think of what they would write. Where's Starless Sea? Starless Sea's over there. I don't have enough hands. What would they write together? Sir, your car does not need to be that loud. It doesn't. There would have to be some kind of god, because that's kind of an overarching theme of a lot of Neil Gaiman's work. And it would have to be in some kind of whimsical, magical place that exists outside of space and time to be consistent with Erin Morgenstern's work. And probably involve some kind of rivalry, maybe like between these gods, or like a god and a human, or like there's something there. I know it. I'm realizing now, of course, that like every one of these books that I'm talking about collabs are like gritty, dark, kind of fantasy novels, and like, oh well, you come to this channel for a reason, and it's not for fluffy contemporary novels, and if you're here because of that, hello, you have strayed very far from the path. So next up is maybe my dream collab out of like anybody on this list, which is saying something, because, well, Leigh Bardugo is a queen, and who am I gonna be pairing her with? I would sacrifice a limb if I could have Leigh Bardugo write a book with Margaret Owen. These books are basically a Venn diagram already, which, now that I think about it, might actually be detrimental, but no, I want a collab between 2 authors who will write about dark gods and jewel heists, and like the 2 of them together, that would take down the world. That would be the collaboration of the freaking century. Everyone knows Six of Crows. It's, a bunch of bad influences coming together to steal some stuff, and we love them all regardless of how morally gray they are. And Little Thieves is very similar. It was one of my favorite books of 2021, which I think is in that corner, about a girl who is the goddaughter of the gods of death and fortune and has to pull off this heist while being under a curse that is slowly turning her into gemstones for her own greed. And Vanya gives Kaz a run for his money. I immediately thought of this pairing because their world building is both so good. Margaret Owens has her other duology, The Merciful Crow, and I love that. I think her character development is so good. I think her endings are quite cyclical, so like the way that she plots things is A+, and Leigh Bardugo has a talent for making me care about terrible people. So I feel like the 2 of them together, with their bomb-ass world-building skills and the ability to, bring these dark gods to life, I think would be phenomenal. Okay, so if the 2 of them collabed, what kind of book would they write? It would obviously have to be a heist. Or maybe not a heist, like maybe they're both tired of planning heists. Like it seems like it would be a lot of work and brain power, and like I certainly don't have that. So if not a heist, like a takedown of a government or a country or a world or something. I don't know why, but I'm thinking pirates or like something on a ship. At least the majority of the plot has to do with something on a ship taking place. Maybe they're traveling. Maybe there are pirates, I don't know, we haven't worked that out yet. Leigh, Margaret, and I haven't worked that out yet. Of course there'll be some kind of like rivals to lovers, a morally gray leader, and like a found family aspect, because like who doesn't love that? And they have to know that if they don't put in a girl with a sword, I will riot. Both of these books have a Netherlands type spin on their fantasy world. So I feel like maybe we should get out of that comfort zone just a little bit. Maybe we could focus on like Germanic, Norse mythology. I'm a genius. Guys, I just planned this book for you. Like, fire up your laptops, let's go. Okay, snack break. I'm gonna cry. Why are these so good? Okay, just demolished half a plate of cookies, put on some fresh lip gloss, and we're ready to get back to it. Thirdly is a collab that I want to happen so desperately, but also not, because I'm low-key a little afraid of what would happen, and that would be if V.E. Schwab collaborated with Rebecca Schaeffer. You got a supernatural supervillain story where everyone's a bad person, and then we have Same. One of V.E. Schwab's first big novels was Vicious, which tells the story of two college students who, to gain superpowers, kill each other and bring each other back from the dead. And then in Not Even Bones, we have a girl who dissects paranormal creatures to sell their organs on the black market. There's a whole lot of blood and a whole lot of bad business in both of these books, and there are some bad bitches if I do say so myself. Oh my god, look at that alliteration. My English 12 teacher is gonna be so proud. The funny thing is like I've met and like fully had dinner with Rebecca Schaeffer, and seen V.E. Schwab talk on panels, and they are both like so sweet and kind and like chill, and then reading these books you're both like, oh my god, are you okay? I would never want Covid and Victor to meet each other, but at the same time it would be very fun to watch that world burn. Okay, so Victoria, Rebecca, let's brainstorm what their book would be about. Okay, hear me out. Darker Shade of Magic has that magical tournament in the second book. And so I'm thinking some kind of paranormal slash supernatural tournament of some kind, where like the loser has to face dire consequences at the hands of somebody bad. Wait, no, paranormal circuses. Okay, that would be it, because Victor's whole thing in Vicious is that he's trying to meet other people who also have those powers, and Not Even Bones, the whole thing is that the paranormal creatures, including the main character who ends up being a paranormal creature, get locked in a facility to like study from the government. So if we take out that like torture aspect, well, the two of them together, there would be a torture aspect to them, but like less government and more like whimsical torture. And then the big thing is like someone's murdering performers. But, or are they murdering them? Are they actually getting them out? Because this is a circus thing, it's a bad thing. Look, I don't know the details, I'm not writing the book, they are. I have trouble finding paranormal books that I like because I find they either fall into that like government militia kind of story, or they fall into the paranormal romance, war banging werewolves kind of thing. And not saying either of those are bad, and not saying that I haven't enjoyed books from those categories before, but I would really like to see a book that has those aspects that is a little bit less tropey, and I think that the two of them together could make something real nice. Speaking of extreme violence, I think this next pairing would go chef's kiss. Just shut down the whole kitchens. This is gonna be the chef special of the year, should this ever come out. Look, I just read a rom-com about a cooking show, okay? I have never watched Top Chef in my life. But this dynamic duo would write the bloodiest, goriest, most high fantasy kick-ass book that I think would ever dare to exist, because I think Saba Tahir and Shiranje Zhao would be, oh, they would be a power couple to be beat. The book community loves these books for good reason, because they are vicious and they are vengeful. And Ember in the Ashes is a Roman-based fantasy novel that also pulls in Persian folklore about, you know, taking down evil governments, and then also like, oh man, dark gods. That is an enemies to lovers, revenge-filled battle story. Whereas Iron Widow is a sci-fi about a girl seeking vengeance in a world where mech bots are used to fight off an alien force, and when she kills kills the male pilot. She becomes an Iron Widow, and her life changes from there once the government is trying to cover up why girls have to sacrifice themselves to the mech bots to keep the war going. And it's like, what words come to mind when you think of these books? It's like battles, girls with swords, trauma, you know, like the Venn diagram for those three words is a circle. And I think the two of them can make a really cool, like East Asian inspired folklore fantasy novel about vengeful girls taking over thrones and overthrowing the patriarchy. A lot of stuff about sacrifice and betrayal and enemies to lovers, because of course there has to be that. Ooh, I'm thinking princess forced out of her court because either she or her family was overthrown, and now we need to gather an army and take down the new king. Maybe the usurper is under some kind of dark god spell or contract. That's a good one. I like that. You know what? While I'm thinking about it, let's just fully table the idea that this is gonna be a young adult book. We need to make this an adult book so that both of them can just go full stop, not have to censor each other, because I think that is where the downfall would be. I want to see the blood, I want to see the gore, I want to see the battle, I want to see the romance. I want it all non-censored. I want to see heads hitting floors. I want to see broken fingers to do magic. I want to see people like having affairs in buildings, and then, well, like everything burns down around them. That's all I want. Is that too much to ask from these two people? I don't think so. Speaking of something no less magical, but perhaps a little less murderous, the next pairing is a pair, these women together, I could truly do no wrong. I think if Laini Taylor and Roshnichukshi got together, their book would be magical and whimsical and colorful. I actually wanted to hold up a different book of Roshnichukshi's. I wanted to hold up The Star-Touched Queen, so I'll just, editing Rachel will make that happen. Star-Touched Queen is a take on Hades and Persephone that is Arabian and Persian inspired folklore. When I think of this book, I think of magical markets and like smelling spice in the air and like the desert wind and watching the stars above you to read your fate. Whereas Strange the Dreamer is a fantasy book about a librarian who finds out that the lost magical city is actually still real and the gods were real. He gets accepted on a trip to go to this lost city, and once he's there, he finds out that the children of the gods still exist. A lot of the fantasy books getting published nowadays, and a lot of the fantasy books I happen to like, are very grim dark. There's a lot of stuff of like blood and revenge and like morally gray characters, whereas in both of these stories you kind of have that more like magical, wonderful, colorful type of magic, and it's a nice break, honestly. When I think of the two of them coming together to write something, I think of them both sitting down at a table, you know, Laini with her bright pink hair and Roshni with like her elegant tailored dresses, and then like suddenly some gold dust appears on the table, and then like bam, there's a fantasy novel right there. I don't know what the cover would be, but you could guarantee that it would be freaking beautiful. If the two of them were to get together and plan something, God Warriors. Absolutely must have. Also some kind of secondary, more magical location, and that place would have to have a more magical like nighttime than the previous fantastical place. I am getting romance and beautiful dresses at some point of the story. Color. That's all I can think of when I think of a combination of these two books. I'm like, color and magic. You know, like with the Leigh Bardugo and Margaret Owens collab, like that would be like a bombastic kind of like super engrossing, fun, cool book. And I think the two of them together would make something that like made your heart hurt for a really long time. And I'm the kind of reader who's a glutton for punishment, so like sign me up, I'll pay the fee. Alright, last one. Lastly is the author collaboration that I would give what's left of my soul for to be able to hold in my hand, and that would be a collab between Crystal Sutherland and Erin A. Craig. I don't currently have any of Erin A. Craig's books in physical format, so editing Rachel is making something happen. If you follow me for like more than 5 minutes, you will know that House of Hollow is one of my favorite books, and it was one of my favorite books of 2021. House of Hollow follows the 3 Hollow sisters who went missing when they were 8 years old for 1 month, and when they came back, their eyes turned black, their hair turned white, they cannot remember the month that they went missing. And now one of the sisters has gone missing once again 10 years later, and the 2 other sisters have to go and find her, which leads to this magical, creepy, weird chase through liminal spaces. Erin A. Craig's books, which are the House of Salt and Sorrows and Small Favors, have the thing where you're like, oh, this is gonna be like fun and cool and like, ooh, fairy tale retelling, and then you get 60% of the way through and you're like, holy shit, what have I signed up for? Her books have that slow, creeping, unsettling kind of vibe where suddenly you're like, oh, I've been very wrong about everything this entire time and it's about to go down. Small Favors was the last one that I read, and it did such a good job of really drawing you in. It's very atmospheric, and the detail that Crystal Sutherland put in this frickin' book is what made me like lose my mind over it. And as in both of these books, I love when authors will play with the unnatural versus the natural. That whole supernatural nature magic, or like nature versus human, especially when you play with like human form or animal form. Both of these authors have writing atmosphere down pat. So I think the two of them together could write some kind of really amazing horror fairy tale retelling. It would have to take place at least somewhat in a forest. That's non-negotiable. Maybe the forest has some kind of curse on it, or maybe it's home to some cursed magical creatures. What I'm feeling between these two would be like corrupt forest mystery novel. I think you could do a lot with that. And I'm gonna make a very specific request. I know this might be kind of hard to pull off, but I think that you could do it for me if I'm giving you this idea for free. And that would be, the cover has to have some kind of flowers on it. I don't know what kind, I don't know in what stage, but I think that would really like cinch the whole deal for me. And if it ever gets turned into some kind of like TV show or movie or web series and you need a lead actress, like, hit me up. Okay, there we go. There you have it. There are a bunch of authors that I would love to get together and just write a bunch of stuff. I don't care if it's a short story, I don't care if it's a movie, I don't care if it's another novel, whatever it is, your vibe, I want a piece of it. I'm sure we all know the consequences of working with people that we don't like. You know, group projects, who was the one that put in the most effort and was up till like midnight the day before prepping everything when the rest of your group mates just like fucked off in week 2? Anybody else? But when you have a group that like everyone is really invested and like knows exactly the kind of thing they want to do, that's the kind of collab I want. And I think that these authors, unless they all have beef with each other that I don't know about, I think that these people would freaking kill it. Please leave down below some of your own author collabs that you would love to see, because sometimes I see authors on Twitter, whatever, they're like mutuals. I'm like, oh, okay, like it would make sense if they had collaborated. But I don't know about a ton of people. I have no idea what's going on in the contemporary world. Like, I know Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera collabed on What If It's Us? Big brain moment. I have a feeling that's maybe more of a wish. V.E. Schwab and Neil Gaiman will collab, because I've seen them in panels together and like they kind of seem like they have a good vibe going on. Also, Raika Aoki and TJ Klune, I've seen them in panels and they're like BFFs. I love both of them so much, and I think the two of them together could do some real emotional damage to me. Speaking of emotional damage, I think this is all that I can handle today, and my headache has got worse because I've been yelling at a camera for like 45 minutes. So we're gonna wrap this up so I can go drink more tea and eat the rest of my plate of cookies that I made earlier. You know where to click like the video, you know where to click the subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!